Hey, how's it going, fella? It's me. You're watching the field vlog again on Pro307. Thanks very much for following and subscribing. Hit that subscribe button. We're here at Driftland and day 2 of the Driftland Bash. And let's see what Stevie's doing. You doing, Stevie?
Need every advantage we can get, lower tyre pressures.
What a really eventful day 1 of the Bash. Look, Stevie's got all the wall runs. Whoa, hold on just a second. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Thanks for subscribing and thanks for, just basically advancing all my social media at the moment. It's been great. And this exciting installment is from the Driftland Bash. What is the Driftland Bash, might you ask? It's funny you say that, because basically everybody on my social media that doesn't really, not involved in the drifting scene, had questions, what is the Driftland Bash, and I found it really difficult to explain. So, you don't want to take your expensive, nice, pro drift car to the Driftland Bash, because the Driftland Bash is all about proximity, hitting the wall, and just general tomfoolery of that sort. So, for that, we decided, myself and my teammate Stephen Black, the legend that is SDC legend Stephen Black, to buy an E46 BMW.
It's not wrecked after Bash. We'll keep going.
Yeah, just keep using BMWs. Buy more BMWs. We're just gonna buy heaps and heaps
like
of
the cool kids all have missiles.
We're gonna have the missile. So we're in Montrose somewhere, a certain location, and there's a BMW here somewhere. We're looking. It is that house. I told you there's trailers behind the house, like a motorsport kind of people. Right, let's see how this goes. So the weapon of choice we decided to go for was four door. Yeah, it's a 4-door. It's got a boot. 4-door E46 BMW. It's a 2.8 straight 6. And the reason we picked this particular car was it already had a lot of prep into it, and it had already been to like a drift day. So we kind of wanted something that was already there, and there had been a lot of work put into stripping the car. It already had a hydraulic handbrake, it had lowered suspension, it had exhaust modification, and it was kind of ready to go. Or we thought it was ready to go. Now, we haven't drifted BMWs, well, I certainly haven't drifted a BMW at all, but it's been a long time since Stevie's drifted a BMW. And the plans were pretty simple. We were going to paint it the good old Risky Racing purple, and ideally it was just going to go the way it was. We had a few little tweaks to do, like a water pipe to fix in the radiator, and the idea was just we'd eventually sticker it up and make it look kind of special, a bit different for the day. Prep for the Driftland Bash with the BMW, and seems to be holding in water now, which is a good start. You know anything about BMW, Stevie? You know anything about BMW, Stevie?
I know they're rubbish.
Us being the pro kind of gentleman drivers we are, we thought the best thing to do would be to take the car to Crail and just do a bit of a shakedown to make sure that 1, it was going to drive, and 2, that we could actually drive it, because we didn't want to look like a bunch of, what word could I use for it, beginners? So here we are at the Crail Oval. It's a lovely sunny day, here with Stephen Black in the helm, in the driver's seat, and we're actually in the skid car. We're in the E46 missile car, and I don't know what's going on. We're just waiting to get on track just now. I think another E46 is broken down, which is not a good sign really, but oh, that's a bit slack looking.
This snap-off boss is definitely Wish's finest Chinesium.
Chinesium! Vibranium, uranium, Chinesium. So we've got a bit of time before we go out on track, so we're going to discuss all the excuses So Stevie, excuse one.
This car has no power whatsoever. I think there's a slight misfire actually. It's got no power. And it's got no turbo. There's no boost. There's something wrong with it.
Excuse number two.
There's no lock either. It's got standard lock, and I haven't driven a car with standard lock for about probably 8 years since I've drifted a car with standard lock.
So we ordered lock hubs, but I was a bit late in ordering them. They haven't came in time for this practice session, so we're going out with standard hubs. And man, Drift King says you don't need heaps of stuff to drift, so I mean surely we can drift a BM without any extra. So, like most cars we drive, the first thing we did was brake it. The gear shifter just fell to bits, and luckily, the car still drove. It just made that horrible kind of like rattling noise you're hearing of the gear shifter hitting against something, the gearbox. And to get reverse, you had to physically like punch the dashboard, and Stevie had like a cut in his hand from like trying to get it into reverse. It's an interesting gear shift, that one, but it's not a big problem. We still got the rest of the day out of it. What's it like driving an E46? Well, once it started running a bit better, it drove really well, to be honest. It had, I'm not going to say it had all the power, but it had enough power to drive. I mean, that's what the majority of people drive at Driftland anyway in the UK. And yeah, the handbrake was really good. The steering lock wasn't fantastic, but it surprised me. It had more than I thought it would. And I've shown you a few of the kind of the more poorer clips. Let's have a look at some of the better clips. Now, coming out of this session, especially at the end, Stevie felt a lot more confident in driving the car. But me personally, I thought the suspension was letting it down a little bit. The coilover, just the lower-end springs that were fitted, the car just seemed to lean, like, just bolted into the corner, and it was just horrible. So I thought, at the very least, we'll have to go to some coilovers before the event, just to make the car a bit easier to drive. I didn't think that it really needed the lock, but I had some Wizards of Lock hubs ordered, and I splashed out on a set of front wheels as well. I ordered them when I was actually on holiday the week before the bash. Never seem to be able to take drifting off my mind. It always seems to be just messing about in there somewhere. We decided to fit a set of max speeding rods, coilovers. We got them off eBay for 200 quid. Now, they looked really good when they came out the box, and I'll be honest with you, for a fully adjustable coilover, they were really good. Other than the fact they offered to loosen up a bit, but once you give them all a tighten up a couple of times, they seem to be okay. I maybe wouldn't recommend them for road use, but for just like a drift car, what a difference. The car was night and day from the practice day to go into a drift day with the coilovers. So max speeding rods, coilovers off eBay, I would recommend them for the E46 if you're just doing like track stuff, like if you're doing drift days. Just the spring rates seem to work a lot better on the car. it turned the car from just like a skiddy about car to a proper drift car between the two events. Also, with the lock kit that we had, it was just a set of cut hubs from Wizards of Lock. They did a great job of getting us a set of lock hubs. Check them out on the old interweb if you want to look at their products. It was just cut hubs with a little bit of acumen adjustment. The only modification I had to do to the steering was I had to cut the track rod ends down a little bit because they ended up too long with the cut down hubs. For just cut hubs, the steering lock was really good, and I didn't have to modify anything. I didn't have to run extended lower arms. The coilovers had enough adjustment on them to get the camber right, or what I thought was as right as it could be. And I just had set alignment and we were away. Really good. Me and Stevie seem to have slightly different goals to the Driftland Bash. Stevie's goals seemed to be just take all aggression out in the wall. He was just an all-out assault on the wall. He just every single time. The footage didn't come out great, so I haven't shown it. But just every single time he went past the wall, he'd just give it this really angry bang. And one time his boot lid popped up and he came up so excited because he's always wanted a boot flapper, he's calling it, or whatever. So Stevie was chuffed to bits. So initial impressions of the Bash, I felt a bit like my runs were like and Stevie's runs were a bit more like my runs. Stevie's runs. So I felt a lot of the time the Driftland Bash was a bit more like just a drift day, but in the same sense I didn't take that bad because it gave me the chance to. The BMW was so smooth when you got up to driving it. It moved really nice through the really tight section of the shift lock layout that we're running at Driftland. And I did get a chance to get on the door of some drivers. I had a really cool battle with a guy in an E46 compact, Kevin McCloskey. I hope I pronounced that right, but awesome battle, my man. I feel like, again, I got that opportunity to like actually get on your door, and I feel I was just had that kind of imaginary barrier stopping me getting any closer. It was the thing with the BMW was getting the grip right. If you got the tyre pressures right, the car drove really well, but you struggled to keep up with people. And if you had the tyre pressures too low, it just didn't have the power to kind of like pick up. If you listen really closely, you'll hear a horrible unmapped limiter rattling in the background in second. I think we went round the whole of Driftland in the limiter in that day. Now the first concern we had was tyres. We seemed to be just destroying tyres every session, and I suppose we're a bit naive in thinking we wasn't going to need that much tyres, but luckily Driftland did have tyre changing services. We had some tyres with us, and that got us out a fix really. But then we started to have an issue with the clutch, and the clutch seemed to be slipping, and it got to the point where I went out and it was just, the revs were high and I wasn't going anywhere. So it was like, crap, this is day one, what we're going to do. So we phoned up Eurocar Parts. Other car part companies are available, but in this case it was Eurocar Parts, and they had a clutch. It seems like they go through a lot of E46, E36 clutches in the Fife area. I wonder why that is. So we picked up a clutch, and we went about the rest of the afternoon pulling the gearbox out, and luckily I had enough tools in my van to basically do everything, other than Josh Duff coming to the rescue with some extensions to help us out. Thank you, Josh. Got us out of a fix. We pulled the gearbox only to find, we think it was actually a slave cylinder problem, but we fixed that. New slave cylinder, really sound guys round about to sort us out with stuff, so thank you. And yeah, we got back together and got back to our hotel and had a couple of beers and just had a bit of talk about drifting in general, so that was sound with Stevie. And then it was day 2, and that gets us right caught back up again. Look, Stevie's got all the wall runs. Ow. Stevie with the wall runs. Stevie's some savage wall runs. The only problem I had yesterday was a little issue with the clutch. We had to pull the gearbox and check the clutch, and that cost us about half the day of the Driftland Bash. We got some marks going on there. Some marks going on there. Some contact there. A little bit Robbins racing, but yeah, we're back again for day 2. A bit of fake taxi, the absolute ultimate machine. Say hello to the internet.
How's it going?
How's it going? Oh, I was smooth.
Early for vlogging.
I was smooth. I like that one. How's it going, viewers? So tell the internet how it's running. How's it go?
It's not giving me one issue.
Not one issue.
It's slow and it's got no power, but it's fun.
Is it a 2 litre?
2 litre inline
Straight 6, yeah.
Yeah, with a whole 150 horsepower.
150 horsepower. I've driven one of these, and it is good,
yeah.
But you do need to work it. Interrupting this broadcast for a brief interlude.
No, that's second. You're in second. Hit the clutch. Get this. Don't not fast. Hang there.
I just want to say a big thank you to Ewan Stark for letting me drive his car, his practice car. It was nice to just get a shot and see what it was all about. Lexus IS 200. It's got it's not HSD. It's got generic coilovers on it, but it's HSD 20k springs front and back. Now, he's spoken about it a lot. I just wanted to get a feel of driving a car with that stiff springs. It's only got 150 horsepower, and I just wasn't up to really smashing the limiter and keeping it on that sweet spot. It's got a really weird VVTi, the engine. It's like 6,000 to 7,000. You've got variable valve timing, and it was just really interesting to drive. So thanks, Ewan. Check him out on Instagram. And where were we at? That kind of took us away from the main story a bit, didn't it? Let's get back to that.
It's hard work. I'm sore.
You're sore from fighting it, yeah? I can't bounce it with one hand.
The suspension.
Yeah, let's demonstrate this. Bouncy, 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 bouncy. It's awesome. Loving it.
You try and get some footage of us bouncing in the track.
I'll try and mount a camera in the front, see if I can catch you.
From what I was being told, this just is bouncing. It's got some incredible fuel pop in the back. Another day.
Awesome. Go and see how the local police officers did last night.
Guns don't kill people, rappers do.
Hey, superstar, how's it going? Yeah. Why are you tired? What was happening last night? Like nothing. Nothing.
Party. My lovely dreams that I can't make happen.
Oh. Fresh out of hotel, clean and scrubbed, and just living a dream. Yeah. Oh, no bother, just come. Awesome. I hear a voice. And
that way.
That way is just the entrance. Hey, how's it going?
It's bad, man. It's bad.
Police officers are getting ready. Did you have a hard night last night?
Aye. Aye. Busy.
Barbecue going, fuzz barbecue going. Ah, there he is. There he goes. Good night.
My truck.
Sorry, I've got the internet in your face. I apologise. It's what I do. It's kind of my side thing, you know.
I didn't collapse, so I just sleep in my truck.
You didn't collapse. You just sleep in.
Main door, water coming in. I slept in the bed, sleeping bag. So I thought, big breakfast, that'll help us out.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
It's quite enjoying its life just yet.
Just to say, we had a really lovely hotel room. It was really nice and warm. You know, nice shower this morning. Ah, we did. We went somewhere for a nice cooked breakfast.
It's fine. I'll cook for the boys tonight. You worry.
Story of our day at the Driftland Bash. It's bashed. Yeah, power steering's not working. Oh, so our terrible luck. Stevie got involved and there was a spin in front of him. He was really close on the guy, and he just hit the front passenger side corner of the BM. And it pushed everything onto the alternator and the power steering pump, and it burst the power steering bottle. We lost all the fluid as well. So it's just one of that things where we were a bit surprised that usually BMWs take a little bit of a hit and they seem to just keep going, but just by our luck it hit the right spot at the right place. Just by our luck, it hit the right spot in the right place to push everything in and damage your power steering pump. And it just sounded horrendous when it was running. And we didn't seem to have much of any power steering. So at this point, we kind of felt a bit defeated. It was a case of, well, I don't know if we can really go any further with this. So the next thing they shifted on to was Drift Limbo, which was two cars, and you had to drift between them. You had to enter against the wall and drift between these two cars, and they just kept moving the cars closer and closer. So we felt without power steering that was maybe one to miss, but we didn't want to really miss out on the wall run competition. So the idea of the Driftland Bash wall run competition is you just have to drive down the straight and smash into the wall. So yeah, we were up for that, and it was a case of, right, my turn. I was going to try and drive the car without power steering, and to my surprise, hey, it drove, but the noises that were coming out the power steering pump was just horrendous. And this is a clip that I got from Shay. So this is one of the clips of the train that I was involved in. Now, at this point the windows were steaming up, I couldn't really see anything, I had no idea all those cars were behind me. I just thought I was at the back of like a 4-car train. And yeah, this was my epic wall hit.
1, 2, 3, 4, like 9, number 10, 11, 12, yes, 14, 17, brilliant,
So I got a couple of runs at the wall run competition, and the plan was to come in and swap over to give Stevie a shot. But when I came back into the pits, I realised there was actually smoke coming from the power cables going onto the kill switch. So there must be something shorting out down at the alternator, or some cables got entrapped, and we didn't want a car fire. That's, you know, it wasn't. That's at that point you have to kind of say, right, we've had enough of this, and we had to pack up. But I can genuinely say what we did of the Driftland Bash I did enjoy. I enjoyed driving something that wasn't a mega powerful car, that I wasn't worried about destroying. Not that I'm really worried about destroying my Sylvia, but you know, it was just, we learned that you could batter the car off the wall and you could still continue driving. It wasn't just gonna, like, it took a little bit of that fear away from us. And also it was just nice to have a drive of a different car around Driftland and be able to drive it pretty consistently. So what we learned from the Driftland Bash is we can drift a car. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, it was an expensive lesson, that, but I have to say a big mega thank you to my teammate Stevie. You know, the paint job in the car that we did, and the graphics, and you know, the extra just touches really did make it just that bit better. And I'm glad we went for the suspension, the hubs, because it really did make the car drive a lot better. The car maybe could have used with a different gear ratio, a different final drive, maybe gotten us so we're like sitting in maybe the middle of second a bit more, rather than rattling the limiter right the way round. We're not BMW guys, we didn't know. It was one of the last minute things. So, thank you very much for watching. Thanks very much for subscribing, and if you haven't, why have you not subscribed? Hit the button. It's free. You know, what else should you get for free? Certainly not an E46 BMW, that's for sure. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Also subscribe to the YouTube channel. And till the next time, catch you later.